Hi. Oh, this is the Old Dad Diary, and I am back. We are on our final installment. I know I'm kind of whispering a little bit, but we are on, well, not our final installment. This is second to last. The how. This is the how. I'm kind of excited. I really didn't have a plan for this one. I'm gonna be honest. It was actually the only one I didn't have a plan for. Weirdly enough, I kept trying to think of things, but I didn't really like it. So I feel like it actually kind of works. um, that I don't have a plan. Anyway, how? I kind of decided to do this at night to actually push into it more. That the how doesn't matter as much as you think. Um, anyway, yeah. Okay, the first thing that kind of comes to my mind is uh, I used to play piano, or no, I used to. I play piano and I play guitar. And when I played guitar, I think I learned to play guitar when I was 11. I think I started taking class. I took like a class for 1 year for school when I was either 10 or 11. Um, but there was so many, like, it kind of taught me the basic where the notes are on the guitar, on the frets. Um, and yeah, it was kind of fun ish. But at the same time, I'm not gonna lie, I'd like after I took that class and I would practice a lot for class and all that different stuff. I like never tried again. Like I never played again. And it's not that I didn't know what I was doing, it just felt more like school, even though school was done, because I took it for school and I was homeschooled at the time. And then in my senior year, I think it was my senior year. My senior year I learned how to play piano. And then I kind of stopped playing piano, mostly because no, it's my junior year. It's my junior year, I think. Yeah, it's my junior year I learned to play piano. And then I think I took the class again. Yeah, I think I took the class again. I don't know. Anyway, what was I saying? Like I said, I had no plan. Oh, right. Um, Again, after I kind of finished high school, I stopped playing. And then when I would play, I would just kind of be doing the same thing, like over and over. Like I would kind of just be practicing what I did before, and it was kind of hard for me to create something because I had taken classes. I noticed every single time I would mess up. Like I would literally, if I tried to improvise or any of that, I would just like mess up. Now, with the fast forward a year later, not even a whole year later, in 2025, um, I really enjoyed. I picked up my guitar for the first time in like almost 8 years. Right, crazy. 2025, and I wanted to learn Brandon Lake's Gratitude and Miracle Child. That's really what I wanted to learn was Miracle Child. And I was learning that, all of that different stuff. And this time, 8 years later, that's so bad. I just taught myself. I taught myself this time. Um, and I remember I learned the strumming pattern for, like not strumming pattern, finger picking for Gratitude or Miracle Child, which are the same. That's the same thing. And I was so happy that I taught myself. I didn't even fully know what I was doing. Like I couldn't give you the technical term. I couldn't tell you how at the time, but I was doing it. And then eventually I had met this girl and kind of crushed on her for a bit, and we were kind of like going back and forth, and we were just kind of having like communication problems. Let's just say that. And I I remember I had kind of like I was in so much pain one day and I was like walking around my neighborhood just kind of wondering like why why it just wasn't like working well, like why this thing wasn't working well. Um it was just very off and on. And then I remember I was laying on my couch in the living room, and I'm literally just I think I had just watched a movie. I forgot what movie. And anyway, it had just triggered some emotions, and I did kind of Brandon Lake strumming, finger picking, but I had did what I now know was an A minor, and I did A minor, then I moved it to an E minor, then I did G, kind of, and then I did C, and it was just like I started creating this song. Like this song was just in my head, and I promise, I had no idea what an A minor was at the time. Literally, I was like, this sounds cool, but I heard it in my head first, and I was just like, okay, let me just try something on the guitar. And at first, I just strummed downward with that chord, A minor, A minor, A minor, E minor, G, C, and then I did the finger picking, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's the sound, that's the sound. And so, uh, the song that I had came up with was a song called "Sun Reflects the Moon," and that song is like my song. I love that song so much. And it was the song. The lyrics was based off of like not just the current situation at that time, but a bunch of other situations, and just kind of be like for this repetitive thing. And the basically the gist is like, I know you're struggling. I know you're having a hard time doing whatever it is you're doing, and I know you're hurting me, and maybe you think that I want nothing to do with you, but I want you to know I want to see you shine. Um, anyway, that's, let's get out of that. Talk about that another time. Anyway, um, the sort of gist of that is literally I just kind of tried. I just kind of tried until I got that sound, and again, literally for the next maybe month, I still had no idea what an A minor was. Crazy. And even what I even technically the E minor that I played wasn't actually an E minor. I actually to this day don't fully know what that chord is. It has an E minor in it though. Anyway, yeah. And so it was just that literally sparked me creating music, and not even I can at the time tell you what I was doing, but uh eventually that led to me writing songs again, and something that I hadn't done in years. And actually, I did this before songwriting, um, earlier in 2025, like in January, in like November or December of 2024, was something I picked up again was writing poems. And I wrote poems when I was like a lot younger, like a lot younger. I like wrote a poem for my mom. Is when I was like a much more happy-go-lucky child. And anyway, yeah, that poem writing kind of came back, and then once I started getting back into music and be like, I'm gonna teach myself this music. Um, yeah, that was like great. That was like it was like, oh my gosh, everything just kind of fell in line. That's perfect. And anyway, I started writing more music, and one thing I've learned is I remember I wrote two different versions of the song. One that was with the fingerstyle picking, and I still like that one. And then one that was just down, 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 same chords, but just down strum, down strum. And I realized like I would get so frustrated and like, oh my gosh. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm messing up the finger picking. And people would be like, or even my mom, but literally I would show my friends like the original version that was just down strum, and they were like, why don't you do that one? That one sounds so good. And I was obsessing over it, and I guess it was like a thing of like, why are you obsessing so much of like that part? And not saying that like, hey, if you're doing that, you're like, oh, is it bad? I'm just saying it doesn't matter as much as you think, because most of the time you're doing it because you're trying to perform and be like, all right, I'm showing this to people for the first time. Trust me, the how and that part doesn't matter as much as you think. Just do. Don't like overdo it. Don't over confuse yourself. And yeah, was something else I wanted to say. But yeah, anyway, that kind of sparked into, again, that sparked into me creating music, yada, yada, yada. And one day, towards the end of 2025, I started playing piano. And like I said, part of the reason I stopped playing it was because every time I would improvise, I would always hear the mistakes. And this time, I just was like, forget it. Like, let's just make mistakes. And I think from writing music with my guitar and then learning so much about my voice and all of that different stuff, and then I would just basically learn songs on uh, piano, and then I would teach myself what is a chord, what is what makes a chord, what like and what are the four different chords, major, minor, happy, sad, augmented, or diminished. And I just kind of taught myself those things, and it was like this was so much better than what my teachers taught me. And they had all the technicalities and all that different stuff, but it wasn't helping me. And so it's really not about the how as much as you think. Like, I would just eventually be like, yeah, this sounds good. Let's just play this. And I was like, oh, this sounds not bad with it. Let's just try that. And again, sometimes it's just do. See what happens, Just try it. I also want to say, and not just in the aspect of the how doesn't matter in the technicalities that you do, but it actually, whether you are doing church, I'm going to talk about church for a little bit. When it comes to worship, you can go in. I know a lot of you that have either been to conferences, that have been to church. If you haven't been to church, you may not relate to this part, but maybe you do. Maybe you grew up in church. People will be like, oh my gosh, I felt the Holy Spirit, all that different stuff. And you're like, I did not feel that. And the truth is, some people are saying that because they think that they should or they're supposed to. And you're like, and you may be the only one that's like, yeah, that's not. You may not be the only one not feeling it. You're just the only one admitting to not feeling it. And so there's a lot of times where I've been to churches that are very popular worship bands, that are a very popular worship band, and it's like they're bargaining for the spirit. It's like the longer we sing and the slower we sing, the better. Like, and I say bargaining because that's what it felt like. It's like I'm just gonna throw out chips till the Holy Spirit grabs onto it. And it was just a lot of, sometimes people focus so much on the how, and it's like, for some of you, you felt better worship in your room of like the most simplest things, or with your family, or maybe you haven't experienced worship. But I'll say this: let's say you're listening to music. Some of you like real simplicity because there's intimacy within that simplicity. Everyone is able to kind of connect, and that's also yeah. So I want to say, like, when it comes to worship, there are certain places you're not crazy. Let me tell you, you're not crazy. The how, there's some people that do focus too much on the how, and it does create an environment that is stale and dull. There are some churches that do worship that are a lot of, what's the word? Coping with life. It's like, I know everything is bad and all things are bad, but I know you give me peace in the midst of it. And I'm not saying that's bad. However, let's be real. You need some fighting songs, right? You're like, you need some David beats Goliath type thing, some Jesus conquered the grave type of music, like literally some fighting songs, like, you know, the Lion of Judah is coming on his horse, he's coming to kill all the bad men, you know what I mean? Like, you need some, like, I want to see him defeat. You want justice in your songs. Ooh, that's good. That's good. But that's what I mean. Like, there's a sort of element that's missing. And hear me, because it's not always the songs. It's not always the how. It's not always the songs. Most of the time, it's actually not the songs. The songs can be great, good songs. It's about the person. That's why I also say it's not always about the how. It's like, oh, that person, they know how to record music, they have a good voice, and I'm not connected to this. Sometimes that it's because that person has an agenda, or it's simply because that person's faking. Like they don't actually want to do this, they don't want to be here. Hear me. It's not about the how. It's less about the how than you think. Even there is a Netflix show called The Queen's Gambit, and it's this woman chess player, played by Anya Taylor-Joy, and she is from like a young age, she's like a chess genius, and she can see it on the wall, right? And like the how isn't always taught to her. Like when she's younger, there's a janitor that's like her uncle. Not really her uncle, but like treats her, is like a father figure and kind of teaches her chess. But she has this mental picture. And for some of you creatives, or just not even creatives, some of you have really good discernment. And you're like, I can't explain it. I can't. This is what the how is about. It's the way that something is done, right? It's like, oh, this is step by step. And you're like, I'm gonna be honest, I can't. And I've had people even ask me before, like, how can you hear God so well? And I'm gonna be like, sometimes I've been like, oh, because maybe I want to, or because I've spent so much time with Him. But I'm gonna be honest, when I've been doing worse, when I've been doing bad, when I'm literally angry at Him, or not, I won't say angry at Him because that's kind of good sometimes, but when I've been distant from Him, it's so easy for me to hear Him again if I want to, or just if He wants to. It's like easy for it. But what I'm saying, it's not about the how. It's I don't want to real feel that because that's the last one. But it's not about the how. Let's just say that. I think you're already getting the gist. But with Anya Taylor Joy, she would literally see the chess pieces on like the ceiling. She had a mental picture. She could physically see it there, and she would practice at night, just over and over and over, different combinations, different pieces, and she was just beating people, beating people, beating people. Um, and it's funny because I was gonna say, well, I was thinking about that show and how there is one opponent that she really could not beat. She had lost to him, I think, twice. And he was the world champion, not just the United States champion, but the world champion. I was going to say, well, she did have to actually learn a lot of moves for that. However, that's not actually what won her the match because she actually knew all of the different. That's so good. She actually knew all of the different moves, all of the different techniques and stuff like that. The issue was she was formulating this plan by herself. And once she had friends around her to actually help her, and that was actually the reason why he kept beating her, was because it was a team that was helping him. It wasn't that he was just smart and all the different stuff. He also had other people helping him, with techniques and stuff like that. And once she got that, then she won. So again, it's not about the how as much as you think. Um, yeah, yeah. Whoa, that's good. That's crazy. I'm not. There's gonna be no cuts in this. So yeah, this is the Old Dad Diary. I love you, and I'll see you soon for the last part of this series. Finally, next week. I don't know when this is coming out. I'm assuming this is coming out on Wednesday or Sunday. One of those. Anyway, see you soon.